Welcome. This is our final Balanced Living Lecture of 2019, and we're really excited to have a speaker that I've been trying to get here for years. You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that.
But I got you through my degrees of separation. As most of you know that have been to the committee or to one of the lectures are sponsored by the Cincinnati Bar Foundation's Ken Jameson Health and Wellbeing Fund. And as I am often fond of doing, I ask that if anybody is in the process of giving a donation to the Bar Foundation, which you should all do. Arianna is here in the audience and cheering me on. There's Investing for Justice is the fundraiser that's going on now. You can make a gift directly to our fund, which goes to do this work every year, and hopefully now that we are fully funded, we'll go to expand what we do in this area. So our committee is active every month. Pretty much we do a monthly meeting, which is a lot of planning, but occasionally have like a local lawyer come and speak about how they handle their own stress management. And we meet on the first Wednesday of every month, Monday. That would be good. So we had moved it, but now we're back on the first Wednesday. So, and today's speaker is Dr. Sean Cotton, who is the director of UC Center for Integrative Health. And she is a research psychologist who does research in the area of mindfulness and spirituality and health-related issues. And we are very excited to have her today to speak with us on mindfulness strategies for improved productivity, focus, and overall well-being.
Thank you, Tabitha. So again, just to be clear, this is the balanced living, not the grievance. If people decide to go back and forth, I'm good with that. I'm really delighted to be here. I speak every year at the law school now for probably the last 4 years. I speak with the first years during their orientation on a similar topic, and I'm thrilled to be here. I am sorry that my colleague Meriden McGraw is not with me. She is my partner as it relates to our mindfulness in the workplace work, and she had something come in right at the noon hour that's 2 blocks away, but again, she's sorry she can't be here. So I understand that you all talk about issues related to sleep, stress, food, exercise, movement, healthy living. I know you've had a variety of mindfulness talks over the years. I'm hoping this is something new. If it's not, raise your hand and say, Sean, can you teach me something new? Can we talk about sleep? I can send people slides. So my hope is we learn something, but please, as we go, feel free to raise hands, ask questions, and hopefully this will be informative. So unfortunately, and this may not be surprising to people in the room, but the World Health Organization has called stress the global health epidemic of the 21st century. Not obesity, not cancer, not cardiovascular disease. Again, I come from the medical school. Sorry, I'm a psychologist by training. But we know that stress underlies many of these issues. People are overeating, people are using too much substances, people are not exercising, and they get then at risk for some of our chronic diseases. But stress, in terms of framing the problem today, is really what we're going to be talking about. So a few questions to start us off. The APA, the American Psychological Association, estimates that stress costs American businesses how much per year? Just give me a guess. How many billions? $500 billion a year. And when we start thinking about your own companies, teams, practices, firms, or whatever, think about investing and not seeing this return on the other side. How many workdays are lost each year due to stress on the job in the U.S.? Annually due to stress. 550 million workdays are lost. Sorry, I'm turning a lot. Let me come over here. How about what percentage of all doctor's visits are due to underlying cause of stress? All doctor's visits in the United States. 75 to 90%. You've seen this before, Tabitha. That's unbelievable, right? I mean, I know that we're all stressed, but I don't know if this is shocking to anybody else. 75 to 90% of all of our doctor's visits in the United States. And so again, I come from the medical school perspective. I do spend some time with the law students, not so much with practicing lawyers like yourselves. But how many people in the room don't feel like this every day? Distracted, overloaded, frazzled, got so much. All right, Gary, you want to come? Then you can come do the talk. If anybody doesn't, you don't feel that anymore. Not every day. Okay, that's great. Why is that? Why do you not feel that way every day anymore? Fabulous. That's fabulous. Great.
When I start to feel that way, I think, what am I saying to myself in my brain?
That I can stop and do something different. Fantastic. So that's great progress right here. Maybe not everyone feels it, but there are things we can do. We're going to talk about some individual things here today, but thank you for sharing, Jan. Harvard Health Publications put out a piece that said to combat the stress epidemic, businesses, schools, law firms alike will need to start teaching stress reduction, mindfulness meditation, things that are proven to reduce anxiety and stress and increase our focus and our resiliency. Now, I want to be clear today that we're going to talk about individual level factors. That is not at all to say that we don't have major work unit issues. We have major practice level issues, major national policy level issues that are stressing out our workforces. We just can't address all of those today. There are people that are doing these things at the organizational and work unit level. Today we're talking about some of the things at the individual level and specifically as it relates to stress reduction. So I know we're eating. This is the worst time to say to people, can you stop eating for 3 minutes? Take a really big bite. We're going to do two kind of experiential things today. If you do nothing but just your grocery list or Friday night, what are we doing this weekend? No one will know the difference. But I'm going to invite you, if you're able to put down your food and drink for 3 minutes. That's really how long this one will be. But I don't like talking about mind-body practices until people know, what are you talking about, Sean? Like, so I'm not going to ask you to meditate, but I'm going to ask you to try something with me and see what it's like for you. So I'm going to invite you to, again, put things down. Thank you so much. Just get comfortable in your chair. Sometimes feet flat on the floor, really feeling the support of the chair. Get your arms and legs in a place that feel comfortable for 3 minutes or so you don't have to move around too much. And I'm going to invite you for the next few minutes to close your eyes if that works for you. Sometimes, you'll start to hear the bells outside that are really lovely. But closing your eyes to minimize distraction if that's acceptable to you. And if not, just a soft gaze downward in front. And I'm going to invite you to go somewhere in your mind that is very familiar. I'd like you to imagine as if you are in your kitchen right now. Really try and imagine yourself in your kitchen. So look around. What are the colors, the appliances? Are you there on your own or with somebody? What are the sounds in your kitchen? Is there a humming of a refrigerator? Is there music playing? How about the smells? What are the smells in your kitchen? Is there something delicious cooking on the stovetop? Really trying to take your mind and imagine yourself in your kitchen right now. And now you look down on the countertop, and on the countertop there's a nice cutting board, and on the cutting board there's a beautiful yellow, plump, juicy lemon. And you might pick up the lemon in your mind's eye in your hand, and again, you feel the meaty texture of the plump skin, and you see the bright yellow color. And you place the lemon down on the cutting board, and imagine picking up a knife that's right next to the cutting board and slicing this plump, juicy lemon just in half. And as you cut the lemon in half, you immediately smell the pungent, lemony scent because the beads of juice are rolling down. And then cutting yourself a nice lemon wedge. Again, setting the knife down on the counter, and gently imagine picking up this lemon wedge, and there's juice rolling down. You smell the lemony scent. And you bring it up to your nose and maybe smell again. And then imagine opening up your mouth and taking a nice, big bite. And then holding on to that sensation of the lemon bite, set the lemon wedge down on the counter. Say goodbye to your kitchen for now. You'll see it in good time. And then slowly and gently guiding yourself back into the room, back into the space, noticing the lights as you gently open your eyes, maybe the sounds in the room, looking around. And then if you wouldn't mind looking at me, making sure nobody's napping in their kitchen. We're all back. Great. Fabulous. Everyone able to find their kitchen? Pretty much. Okay. Everyone able to imagine the lemon, either the feel or the texture of that? Great. Okay. All right. Any experiences from that? What did people notice or experience when I asked you? Yes, Gary. So I do this at P&G. I do this all around the city. The only group that has ever said that to me were our law school students. A first-year law school student said to me 3 years ago, well, I got super stressed out because I cut it the wrong way. You're the only group that's ever said that. That's fascinating to me. All right, Gary, so you cut it the wrong way, then were you able to kind of shift and recut it?
Yeah.
Okay. Note to self. I got to work on that with the lawyers, tell them which way to cut it. Okay. What other experience did people have? With the biting, with the smelling, anything? Yes.
My mouth is still watering.
Your mouth is watering.
Which is, it's not my favorite part of me. It's actually.
Your mouth is watering. Why is your mouth watering?
It's just really sour.
Because it's really sour?
Flavor.
But you didn't actually have a lemon, right?
No.
No. How many people's mouth watered or puckered or had that kind of? It's usually about 50%. Well, that's a pretty good number. If you didn't have it, don't worry. You might hate my voice. You might hate lemons. You're having a bad day. It doesn't matter, right? But what you just said. So the question is why, right? The question is you created a what response using what? A physiologic response using what? Right, just using your mind, right? And why is that? Because we host our memories in our brain, and our memories go, hey, I know when I've bit into a lemon before, there's a pH balance that's different than what I'm used to, so boy, I better get ready. And salivation kicks in, and it sends the little, right, hypothalamus goes, I better get ready, right? I mean, that's a emotion is attached to process, and so a physiologic response happens. That is the core of what we're talking about, my friends, the connection between your mind and body. It's a built-in hardwire connection that Jan and others have used and are utilizing to harness well-being. That's what we're talking about. It's not swanky, it's not woo-woo, it's not anything from whatever. This is just hard science, which is that your mind and your body are hardwired, they are connected. So we teach this at the very beginning just to say the mind and body are connected. This is nothing swanky. So it's harnessing that power to then utilize for good and for stress reduction for mindfulness. So the stress response, we all know it, but let's talk about it for a moment. Fight or flight response, right? What happens when your body goes into fight or flight? What do you notice? You get tense. What, your muscles get tense? Okay. What else? Your mouth's dry. You're sweating, your heart rate's up, right? You're ready to go, right? You are ready to whatever it is that's in front of you. This fight or flight response is the same no matter what the stressor is. Financial stress, emotional stress, physical stress. When your body, when your little, amygdala senses there's something going on, right? It sends a signal to your hypothalamus that says, oh my goodness, there's danger, right? And the cascade is the same no matter what the appraisal is, right? The cascade happens, and it happens in an instant, right? It doesn't take 10 minutes for you to start sweating. It happens instantly. Because this is what's gotten us out of the way of the bison that are coming down, or if you're crossing 6th Street and some idiot's not looking, right? This is what happens. Good or bad? Fight or flight? Depends. Exactly, depends. So here's the issue, right? So if you're in an acute state and somebody is coming after you, if you are unfortunately one of those kids in school yesterday, you're out of the way, right? But raise your hand, and again think, and maybe Jan or Gary might be we'll see, people who say not me. Raise your hand and think carefully if you deal with one stress at a time in your life. If you wait for the thing at home to resolve, and then you come into the office, or you wait for some person or whatever case or person you're dealing with, and then you deal with the next one. Raise your hand if you deal with one stress. Right. So this is our problem, right? We are hardwired to get through things and get through them quick and manage them. But the problem is, We are in chronic stress. If you own, where's my phone? If you own one of these, excuse me, Tabitha, it's chronic stress, right? If you've got kids and they text you or they don't, and they Snapchat you, then you call, where's your partner? I mean, we're constantly on. So I'm not talking about fight or flight as it relates to acute stress. We need that. But I'm talking about the chronic stress that wears on us day to day and what that does to us from a physiologic standpoint. Now, I presented this in the medical school, and Dr. Boat, who's our former dean, said, Sean, you can't keep telling people that stress is bad. I'm like, well, Dr. Boat, I know that, right? I mean, stress, this is a computer. I don't know how to work a Mac, but 3 days ago, these slides weren't working because a group in town redid our slides. And, stress gets you ready. It gets you prepared. It gets you up to do what you need to do. So I'm not talking about all stress, but I'm talking about chronic stress. So if there's one slide to remember, this is the time to look up from your lunch and remember this one. It's the importance of returning to baseline. So before I show you the slide, our sympathetic nervous system is that part of our central nervous system, as you all know, that kicks in when it needs to kick in. That's our fight or flight. The other side of our nervous system is our parasympathetic nervous system, right? That's the one that's responsible for digestion, rest, relaxation, sleep, all of that. So the issue is if your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive, this is the one we're trying to engage. We're trying to talk about how do we engage this side of our nervous system so we can sleep, right? We can focus. We can not overeat or not overdrink. Like, how do we engage this side of it? And so the question is, how do we get our physiology down to baseline routinely throughout our day? So here's what's supposed to happen, right? Stress hormone on the left, that's your cortisol. Something happens, your cortisol level shoots up, and in a perfect world, it comes back down and you're all settled and you're on your emails or on your phone and everything's fine, right? Unfortunately, on a stressful day, week, month, I hear it's a particularly stressful time of the season per Rachel, what happens, second stressor comes and you have yet to rebound. And then the third one comes. And by the end of the day, severe loss of resiliency, that ability to bounce back, jacked up for the lack of a better term, right? And the question, this might be by 8 o'clock in the morning. This might not be by 8 p.m. or this might be by 9:30. And so you're not responding as well to novel stressors, right? You're snapping at people, or I am snapping at my children. I'm not responding the way I should. I'm sending emails too quickly. So the question is, how do we do this? Multiple times throughout our day. What do you use? And the answer is going to be different for everyone in the room, right? What do you use to return to baseline? And I will say I was presenting to one group and someone yelled, marijuana, and I went, okay. I'm not here to judge. There's no judgment. Just the question is, that's what we're thinking about today. How do you return to baseline? And I mean multiple times throughout your day. So that from a physiology standpoint, that you are letting your parasympathetic nervous system kick in and not be on overdrive all day long. Because unfortunately, what we know about chronic stress, or that cortisol, that stress hormone, we know that chronic stress in the brain causes damage. It's not just that you're grumpy or you're not sleeping well. It actually causes structural changes in your brain. The good news is things like regular mindfulness techniques can also reverse those. But what we know is that chronic stress from a brain physiology and from a quality of life standpoint, it's not good. And the reality is you all work and live in very stressful environments. So mindfulness, again, we'll talk a little bit about knowing that there are many techniques to use. Mindfulness is one technique that can do just this, which is to help down-regulate the nervous system, bring it back down, and help us return to baseline, and is quite literally associated with changes in our brain. Again, so today I'm hoping some of the things that you've all learned, I wanted to bring some of the science to you all today and explain why is Google doing mindfulness for all employees? Why is Aetna doing it? Why is P&G doing it? And we're working with them now, like multiple companies around the country. This is what they do because there's good data to support it. So Jon Kabat-Zinn, I normally would say, what is mindfulness? But if I push this button, the whole thing goes away, so I won't do it. Jon Kabat-Zinn, mindfulness is what? Has anyone seen the Anderson Cooper, the 360 mindfulness special? It's on the front of Newsweek and Time and whatever. So what is mindfulness? Jon Kabat-Zinn is from UMass Medical Center. He's the one about 30 years ago that brought what's called mindfulness-based stress reduction kind of into the secular setting and into really medical schools. He developed this 8-week program. And so this is how he describes it. And I like his definition the best, and I'm going to walk through it slowly with you. So mindfulness is an awareness, nothing fancy. It's actually like a focused awareness practice. One of our surgeons said to me, oh, Sean, I get what you're talking about. When I'm in surgery, I'm mindful. Because that's all I'm thinking about. I can't be thinking about my wife or something I did earlier. Like, all I can focus on is surgery. So it's a focused awareness. Who doesn't want that? in their life, right? Because we live our lives, what? Even since you've been sitting here. And this is normal. How many times have your thoughts gone to something that happened before you came here? Maybe something this morning. What's coming up? How long is she going to talk? What's rolling in on my email? What do I have coming tonight? That's how our minds work. They move, they joggle between sort of past and future. But the issue with mindfulness is if you can train your brain, and you can, that is why they call it a mindfulness practice, to be more in the present moment. Here in the present, we actually do much better. We're less stressed, we're less anxious, we're sleeping better, there's good data to support. So this is a focused awareness practice in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, to the unfolding of sort of the present moment experience and non-judgmentally. You see that? That's the piece that's gotten left over or left out. When we've translated it into Western terms, the piece non-judgment, which is really kind of a core of Buddhist practices, has been left out. And by non-judgment, that means Patrick tries to say to himself, all right, something didn't go well this morning, it's fine, move on. It really is about cultivating non-judgment and compassion. Here's a definition we like to use. And again, as I said, the issue with mindfulness is if you're really here right now in the moment, listening to me, you're not stressed about something else, because guess what? You're not thinking about something else. You're actually here in the moment. So the concept is present moment experience allows us to separate from the past, not be worried about the future, and really live into the present moment. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, good. Why are we talking about mindfulness? I know this is small. Can people in the back see back there? Benefits: reduced rumination, stress reduction, better working memory, better focused, decreased reactivity, the ability to be more cognitively flexible, increased emotion control, better processing, better immune functioning, better overall well-being. This is decades of research, decades. So we're not talking about because it's new age and we think it's cool. We're talking about this because there's decades of science to suggest that, and this isn't just a little app. This isn't, Jan doing this for 2 minutes on a Friday because she feels like it. This is actually a routine. But just like any of your routines, whatever your exercise routine is, your sleep routine, your food hygiene routine, whatever, things take practice, and real behavior change turns into real life examples. And these are some of the benefits of what a regular mindfulness practice would do. So how do they impact our brain? What do they actually do? We've talked a little bit about it, but mindfulness allows us to be, who doesn't want to be more responsive and less reactive? So I don't know about you, but I still react, right? Somebody, and it's usually my kids, to be honest. Somebody says something and and then I have to rein it in. But what mindfulness allows us to do, and I'm going to show you why, it allows us to choose our response rather than just react from this kind of primal part of our brain. So the concept of neuroplasticity, are people familiar with that? So we used to think, we've got some head shaking, that your brain was just your brain and that was it. No way! The field of neuroplasticity, epigenetics, so much is showing us that we can actually create new pathways, new neural pathways through things like food, through things like meditation, through things like healthy sleep, that we actually have the ability to create new connections and move towards health through healthy behaviors. This is data from a team of scientists at British Columbia. They did a series of fMRI studies where they taught people mindfulness and then put them in functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, and they looked at different parts of their brain, before and after. Again, most of the data is on 8-week programs. It's not on a 5-minute. I think United has Headspace or Calm, right, on the airlines for those of you who travel. But they found that 8 regions of the brain specifically related to things like self-regulation, attention control, emotion regulation, things that you would think would be affected by mindfulness were affected. And again, just to give you a little bit of the science, so your amygdala is kind of your fight or flight center, right? It's back here. It's the thing that senses something and we kind of react. That's where our sort of emotional house is. The prefrontal cortex are things that you all need all the time: awareness, focus, attention, regulation. And so what happens is, after 8 weeks of training, what we know is that the connection between the amygdala and the frontal cortex, it gets stronger. No, sorry, it gets weaker, sorry. So normally these things are connected. But what happens is with mindfulness training, it decreases that connection so that instead of just responding from the amygdala part of your brain, you're actually able to use the executive processing piece that you need to use more. Again, this is long, many studies from kind of an fMRI study about looking at these neural connections between the brain. So mindfulness practice increases our ability to use the prefrontal cortex and down-regulate sort of the lower brain activity. Does that make sense from kind of a science-y standpoint? So our mind and bodies are connected. We've talked about this. We're ready for our second experiential, so use the restroom now or go to the grievance committee if you don't want to hear anything else. Just giving you the out. Choice. Yes, you can get more food, but we're going to do a practice. Can you wait 3 minutes? Okay, 3 minutes, then you get more food. I just told her she could have choice in her mindset. All right, so we're going to try something. Again, everyone seems to have put their stuff down. Go ahead. I'm going to actually, I'm not checking my phone, but I am going to actually put some music on for this one. So I'd like you to get comfortable in your chairs. As before, again, sometimes feet on the floor, kind of set, and then feeling the support of the chair behind you. But really what's most important doing any mindfulness practice is that you are comfortable, that you're in a place that feels really good for you. Get your arms and legs. Place where your head, neck, and spine are aligned and comfortable. And I'll start by saying there's no right or wrong way to do this. We're going to try a mindfulness practice. If you've never done it, don't worry. If you do this all the time, try a beginner's mind and just see what it's like for you. But just see what this one's like for you. So again, getting comfortable, closing your eyes if that feels good to you. And if not, that's fine. Just a soft gaze downward in front. Taking just one nice slow breath to settle in for a few moments, and I'll bring you back in a few minutes. I'd like to start by noticing what is here for us right now. Just check in with yourself. Notice what thoughts you're having. Notice what emotions are rolling around this afternoon. How does your physical body feel right now? Nothing to change, nowhere to go. Just noticing and taking an inventory of where you are right now. You might even say to yourself, whatever I'm feeling, it's already here. So let me just experience it. When your mind wanders, which it may, just gently and with no judgment, guide your attention back onto your experience right now. And now, gathering up all of your attention and placing it onto your breath. See if you can really focus your mind and your attention solely onto your breath. Noticing the feelings of your inhalations and your exhalations. You might notice the cool air moving in and out of your nostrils, or the rise and fall of your abdomen. Again, we're not forcing or changing our breath in any way. We're just noticing the feelings of the breath. And when your mind wanders into thoughts of the past, worries about the future, it's okay. Just gently guide your attention back onto your breath as best as you can. And now, in this final moment, see if you can become aware of your entire being. Really really see if you can sense your whole being in this moment. Maybe using your breath as a guide, starting down at your toes, watching the breath move up your legs, into your hips, your torso, your chest, your neck, and out the top of your head. Again, seeing if you can sense your entire being. When the mind wanders, just gently come back to the present, to the sense of your being, to your breath. In this space of quiet, taking a moment to thank yourself for an opportunity, just 3 minutes of quiet, knowing you can come back anytime that you need during your day. Maybe taking one more breath, and then slowly and gently, there's no rush, starting to guide your attention back into the room, back into the space. Feeling the floor, feeling the chair, noticing the sounds here in the room and at your own pace, allowing your eyes to gently open. And before you move, just take note of how you feel. Tired, relaxed, annoyed. There's no right or wrong. Just take note of how you feel before you really come back. And then go ahead and open your eyes when you're ready. Welcome back. How long do people think? I just told you how long it was. Never mind. Reflections. How do people feel? What was that like? And there's no right or wrong answer to this at all. Come on. Yes, ma'am. I'm so happy. What's your name?
Kristen,
Hello, Kristen. How do you feel?
relaxed.
Yeah? How did you feel before?
I
Relaxed?
was having trouble. I have like 10 things on my brain right now at work.
Yep.
So
You're the only one in the room, by the way. Don't worry. That's it. That's it.
And so I like concentrated on like thinking about it, which is really
Concentrate on that thing.
yeah, like it was weird, you know. And eventually by the end, like right before you told me stuff, I kind of felt like because I would go like from my head, I could feel a little tension, and I tried to purposefully like untense my head and my neck.
And the thoughts came in and out? Were they able to,
Yes.
they kind of bounce back in and you were able to?
Yeah, and I try to, okay, stop thinking about it for a minute.
It's interesting. And so some people say, you know, your mind is blank. So your mind's never blank, maybe when you're dead, but it's actually not true, this whole thing about blank mind. So some people, the thoughts will come. Some people will use clouds, let them just, just watch them go by. Sometimes people will use the parking lot thing, like, all right, I thought about that. Let me just put that here. Let me just parking lot that over there, and we'll come back to that.
I call that my
It's,
notepad.
well, there you go, your notepad. But if you're in a meeting or if you're trying to sleep, right, sometimes people will wake up and write that list down. So, great. So by the end, you actually were able to.
Yeah, I thought
How
that
many times did your mind go back and forth, would you say?
pretty much the whole time.
Awesome, great answer. Perfect answer, Kristen. Great, thank you. Anybody else? What was that like? Yes, what's your name?
Ken,
Hello, Ken.
hey, Energized.
Energizing. Anybody else feel energized? It's a less common, but usually several people will feel energized. How did you feel before? Energized also?
Yeah, I'm wired today.
You're what?
I'm wired.
You're wired today, okay. So energized, how was the experience for you? Were you able to focus? Were you thinking about other things?
Oh yeah, came and went.
Came and went, okay. Great, thanks. Thanks, Ken. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Tiffany, as I started
Hey, Tiffany.
relaxing, I noticed that I had a headache, and that I noticed, like, as I got more relaxed, I noticed my shoulders, my back, and
interesting. And you mentioned, Kristen mentioned also a headache. So sometimes, right, we're on the go so darn much that we don't realize that we're tightening. We don't actually realize. And then we get home or we get to a Saturday and it's like, oh my God, my back hurts, my whatever. So mindfulness practices, they're different than relaxation practices, right? So a deep relaxation, a progressive muscle relaxation or things like that, they are really intended to change your physiologic state, that you're going to go from wired to kind of relaxed or whatever. So in a mindfulness practice, it's really about awareness, right? I didn't ask you to change your breath, right? I didn't say, you know, do deep belly breathing. I didn't ask you, I said, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How does your body feel? So within mindfulness practices, the goal is awareness. And within the awareness, you might take 3 minutes during your day and go, man, my head is killing. Like, oh, I haven't had water for 6 hours. Or, right, I've been sitting like this on my computer. So very brief kind of mindfulness practices create an awareness. And sometimes then we tend to notice things like tension, like neck pain, like headache. And then the goal within that is to then make a choice and do something different. Get up, hydrate, get a massage, whatever it is you need to do. So thank you for sharing. Any other reflections? Yeah, Gary. Your whole being.
Yeah, and then you started going back to the body.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was so much more expansive than that.
Awesome.
But I mean, that's but yes, I was thinking of
Big being, and then I brought you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is
I said, I'm not going with you. I'm going to keep out
Perfect.
with you.
Fabulous. And that is a 3-minute breathing practice from mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And sometimes people who aren't used to doing it a lot can't really notice their entire being. So sometimes we'll guide people back and bring it up. But I'm glad you didn't listen. And some people, you know, will like guided meditations or mindfulness practice. Some can't stand it. Some just want their own. Some just want music. But it's figuring out what works for you, right? And what works. Any other reflections? Anyone hate it? I'm very happy for you to say, yeah, I really didn't like it. I mean, some people can't stand it. Sometimes people will say, well, why would I want to stop, Sean? Because then I notice my back pain, right? Or I notice my headache pain. And yeah, that's true. But the problem is that's when we develop chronic stuff, when we don't pay attention to it and do what we need to do. So the goal is awareness. And it's not easy, right? It's practice for a reason. It's not like you're just going to pick up and ride a bike. It's mindfulness. It's practice. It can be hard. The piece about non-judgment and really being gentle cannot be overestimated here. So why are we talking about this at the workplace? If we shift a little bit back and then we'll come back to personal Fidelity Investments, 35% of employers, this was a piece they put out, offered mindfulness courses or training, another 26%. Again, many of our major national kind of organizations and groups. And from an organizational standpoint, again, many of you run teams or you work within teams. What are the organizational benefits? Not just the individual benefits. Enhanced focus as a team, decreased workplace conflict, reduced implicit age and race bias, which has been some interesting new data, mental clarity, response flexibility, creative thinking, working better collaboratively, more compassionate leadership, decreased healthcare costs. So there are major organizations like Aetna and Google aren't bringing this in just for fun. They're bringing it in because their bottom line for their companies are helpful. So the case for business, this was a study done by the NIH in UK and UMass, found that mindfulness at work programs, again, employee absenteeism and turnover were less, improved productivity, improved job satisfaction. Everyone's looking to kind of get their teams kind of up and functioning well. Aetna, so Aetna actually rolled out a program, again, a primary sort of yoga meditation program, found an 11-to-1 return on their investment, that they had healthcare savings cost of over 2,000 people per participant, $6.3 million saved to their bottom line annually by just investing. Again, the problem is we have a country that doesn't do this, right? Our healthcare systems we pay to fix people to the tunes of lots of money. We have a disease management system. We don't have a healthcare system in this country. And so, our businesses are starting to catch up, as many of you know, which is we need to invest early on in prevention and skills and actually build resilient workforces and teams. Again, another study from Mass General found that those participants, particularly, again, in their 8-week mindfulness-based programs, you'll see 43% fewer medical services, and they saved a lot on kind of healthcare costs for the many reasons that you just described earlier. I like this quote, and you can see it in the back. It's Arianna Huffington. She says, stress reduction and mindfulness don't just make you happier and healthier and maybe a better spouse or a parent, but they're a proven competitive advantage for any business that wants one and wants to get ahead. So how do companies and programs and people do this at work? Certainly apps. And I'll show you a couple that Meriden and I like. On-site workplace training programs, mindfulness workshops, some of the things that you all have been doing here. Groups, again, 8 weeks is really kind of the biggest evidence base. But you can benefit from 1 minute a day. You know, what Meriden does probably better than I do is she really talks about little sound bites. So she used to do mindfulness for the Bengals and for the Browns, yes. And it was all about kind of how do you do this in a tiny little assignment. You know, nobody in this room, including myself, has the time to sit and go to Nepal for weeks at a time or even sit for 60 minutes. The question is, how do we do this in a 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute? How do we recharge, get energized, as Ken said earlier? How do we do this briefly? And so you can do this. You can do this in just a 1 minute. You can close your eyes at wherever you are, as long as you're not driving, and just try and refuel and recharge in 1 minute. The data doesn't show that you have to. People often say, how much do you have to do this, Sean? And I know I keep saying 8 weeks is a lot, but what's more important is getting your system down and letting yourself focus. So even 1 minute a day, if that's where you start, that's a good place to start. Mindfulness can be practiced anywhere, right? So again, if we think about just practicing in awareness, grocery line, sitting in traffic, which is a disaster. I mean, I specifically moved to Mount Lookout. Between that and the medical school, I didn't have to get on the freeway. But for those of you who have to sit on 71 or 75, just practicing breathing, right? I mean, what better time? When you're stuck in a car line, you're stuck in a car, you're walking somewhere, you're in an elevator, just these 5 things up here took a little time. You know, what are you doing when you're in the elevator? You checking your phone? You know, you've got to be doing something. So the idea about building this into your day in little tiny sound bites wherever you can, that's more important than finding sort of a regular seated meditation practice, for example. So how do you do this on an individual basis? So again, blocking into kind of mindfulness breaks, even a minute, we've talked about this. A mindful minute. Does anyone start any of their team meetings with just an intention moment or a mindful moment? So I start all my meetings like this. The dean at the medical school now knows this is what you do. If you come into a meeting with me, I've led one this morning. It's not, hey, we're going to meditate and be Buddha. This is not about religious. This is about focusing our attention and our awareness. So I started my meeting this morning, about 15 people in the room, 5 on the call. I said, we're just going to take 1 minute. Everyone just put your phones down, close your eyes if you're comfortable, just arrive. Let's give ourselves 1 minute to arrive here right now. Because we all had busy mornings. We all have busy things, but let's really spend the hour together right now. So go ahead and take a few deep breaths, set the intention, and just let yourself drop in. That's how I start every meeting. Again, it doesn't have to be long, but it's just getting people to focus, pay attention, and bring the awareness kind of into the present moment. Eating mindfully, showering. Showering is my favorite example. If you think about mindfully. Last time you showered, you know, what are you thinking about? You know, not to get too personal, but you know, you're probably thinking about your day, you're thinking about stuff, right? You're processing what's coming. When's the last time you took a shower or a bath and actually really felt the water, felt the temperature, smelled whatever soap you were using? So, you know, what you want to do, you can eat mindfully, you can shower mindfully. Some of us don't use soap, is what I just learned. So some of us actually lather up with a beautiful smelling, yeah. But mindfulness, it's not just about a meditation practice. It's about, you can bring mindfulness into anything that you do. And the goal is, if you use something like a mindfulness meditation to practice it, when you're in an interaction with a client or with a partner or with someone, you can actually bring that in because you go, oof, my mind just wandered 62 times. Let me come back in, let me be present. Or, ooh, I'm about to go off and I really don't want to, but let me do what I've learned in my practice. So the mindfulness meditation practice is really just one way to practice the concept. But you can bring mindfulness in. Has anyone ever done, besides Gary, a mindful eating practice? You have, yeah, so you guys have done that. It's fabulous, right? You actually, what do we do in this country mindfully as it relates to food and beverage? There's one thing in the United States we do. Order? No. What's the one mindful eating or drinking thing, like culturally, that we do? What? No. Wine tasting. So what do you do at a wine tasting? You pick it up, you look at it, you swirl it around, you smell it, you take a moment, and then you take a sip, right? I mean, as opposed to the beer that we drink in this country. But it's a mindful exercise in that you're actually mindfully engaging in what does it smell like? What does it look like? What is it, you know, what is there a sound to the... So anyway, the idea is finding different places and ways to bring it in. This is just our program things. I left some things outside. Meriden and I are working with P&G, other people in town, to really bring this into the workplace. So if people are interested, please let me know. But we're trying to make these accessible for people and to really build these in what happened was probably a year ago, I said to Meriden, everyone in this country is doing this, like around all of our, where is the corporate mindfulness program in Cincinnati? So we have been working on developing that. There's more information there. I was asked for a few minutes, maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll open up for questions. So we work at the law school. I just want to tell you all what we're doing a little bit at the law school. Again, I don't know how many of you actually work with, maybe, I don't know how many of y'all went to UC or have students who've gone to UC. This has been something that we've rolled out that I just wanted to share with you all. I speak with the law students now within their first week. We talk about the stressors. You all know the stressors. It's competitive. Man, cutting the lemon the wrong way. I mean, I've talked to a lot of groups. I've never heard that before. So we know about the stresses. I talked to the first years early on. All of your leadership from the law school was there last time I spoke. We know that stress and burnout, we have more unprofessional behaviors. We have more personal issues as it relates to real substance use and mental health issues. I know you all just lost another member of the Cincinnati law community to suicide this week. So these are real issues. Mindfulness and mind-body practices are one individual technique we can use. We've talked about that quite a bit. Why do we talk about the use of mind-body therapies? That's a broader term for mindfulness. We've talked about it. It works. It works as it relates to stress, anxiety, sleep, depression. And the students really come in already at a very high level, as you can imagine. These are achievers. All of you are achievers. So what we're trying to do here with them is give them some of these tools early on to try and mitigate some of the stress and burnout on the other side. So this is a program. It's called the Mind-Body Skills Program. I launched it a couple years ago at UC with the support of Interact for Health, some from the Provost's office. We've now trained 70 faculty across 10 of our colleges, including our law school. CCM, you think the medical students are stressed out, which is what I thought, and then I went to CCM and I went to the law school, and it's really rampant. I mean, actually what I learned, people came to me. So Sean Mangan at the time was on your health and wellness committee at the law school, came to me and said, Sean, what do you guys have? We really need something for our students. So they now do this at the law school. You'll see it's a 9-week program. Students, faculty volunteer their time. You have 4 law school faculty that are volunteered, and they meet with 10 students for 2 hours at a time for 9 weeks, and boy, does it sound like a long time. But you hear these students talk, and it's the best investment that they've made, and other students stand up and talk to them. But each week they learn a different skill. They learn journaling, drawing, mindfulness meditation, eating meditation. The goal is self-awareness and learning stress reduction tools early on in their careers. Basically, it works. I'm sorry to show you just arrows, but with over 400 students, we compare the students who take the 9-week course to the students who don't, a group of controls. And at the end of it, the 9 weeks, the students are more mindful, they're more resilient. Who doesn't want lawyers that are more mindful, more resilient, more empathic? They're sleeping better, they're less stressed, and they've got less burnout. So we continue to double down on that program. So I just wanted to share that a little bit with you. These are some of the apps that we recommend. Some of you, I'm sure, use many of them, or you've used them. Insight Timer is my favorite, because you can put, like, it's for anger, it's for sleep. I only have 2 minutes. Oh, I have 22 minutes. You know, you can kind of adapt it and tweak it. Again, I'm happy to send these to you so you don't have to feel like you have to write them down. But those are some of the ones we recommend, and I will leave it there. We do have a few minutes for conversation and questions. That's just Meriden's and my contact information. Yes, Gary. Would you like me to go back?
No. One
Okay.
of the things that I liked from the 2017 American Bar Association National Task Force on Employer Wellbeing report
Awesome.
is the
Can everybody hear Gary?
No.
The National Association of Task Force on...
The American Bar Association's National Task Force on Employer Wellbeing, August 2017. The one sentence that I like the best from that is research has found that mindfulness can reduce rumination, stress, depression, and anxiety. I guess 2 sentences. It also can enhance a host of competencies relating to lawyer effectiveness, including increased focus and concentration, working memory, critical cognitive skills, reduced burnout, and ethical and rational decision making.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, thank you for helping to translate a little bit. I'm sorry, I speak mostly to medical audiences, but tying it to real practice and real issues and what you all deal with. There you go, Kristen, bring it on. I know, he's taping it.
Oh, got it, okay. My question is, how do you approach employers about it? Because amongst other things, I've been called like hippie-ish and flighty, I'm trying to think of some other words, because I like all that kind of stuff. And,
Okay.
you know, I have these little stress sprays in my office, and I, you know, when
Yeah.
people are stressed out, I'm like, spray it on, you know, like,
Right.
they, you know, to be honest, people will get irritated with me because I don't get as worked up and irritated and frustrated, and sometimes, you know, I think that they don't take it seriously, or I'm not taking it seriously because I'm not always stressed out and, you know, complaining like I was here till 11 o'clock at night. Things like, how do you bring this practice to an environment where
It's a great question.
it's not
It's a great
appreciated?
question. That's a great question, Kristen. So we, both in law school and I would say from medical school, we live in cultures where it's not great to leave at 5 and go work out, right? You're not working hard enough, you're not producing enough, you're not stressed out enough. So I think part of it is culture change, which is why we're trying to get to the law students early so that they realize that actually this is your healthy behavior series, right? Your balanced living series, that the more that we create spaces and we create cultures within each of our own environments that say, it's not just cool to be whatever, this is the foundation of health and wellness. We cannot be successful, happy, productive, you know, lawyers, X, Y, and Z until we're sleeping well, we're managing our stress, we're eating well, we're connecting. So I actually think it's a much bigger issue of culture change and trying to get within your own units to those people and places that will help drive a culture of wellness. And it takes courage. I mean, I'm a female psychologist at the medical school. I run our integrative medicine program. You can imagine the things that get said, right? But you know what? Acupuncture has thousands of years of data. We now have it in our cancer center, and we now have it in our neuroscience institute, you know, and I don't care what people say. So for myself personally, I base it in science, and I say to people and I base it in the data, which is there's data for this. This isn't just sit and breathe. There is hard science and data to show that stress is our #1 problem. We cannot be productive, we cannot do well, and here is an evidence-based program that we know works. So for me, I base it in science and data. But I think to your bigger question, it's about creating cultures of wellness, which I think is what this committee and going out is about doing. And it's helping to teach our younger associates and our younger students that it's okay to take care of yourself, and in fact, it's vital. It's vital to being, I was looking at your professional statement for your association coming up and I should have taken a picture of it. It says something about professional excellence, right? It doesn't actually say about personal wellness, but I would say, and my guess is with you all being here, that you all believe that personal well-being is tied to professional excellence and integrity, I think is on your, so I think it's tying those things together for people and realizing those things go together, which I think this group understands. Did I answer your question, Kristen?
Yeah.
Jan?
So sobering, because I think of these young students, and I think they're going to go into all these firms and everything.
She said it's sobering.
And it's going to take decades and decades and decades for them
It's on.
to get old enough to effect change themselves as partners, you know, and whatever. Because I think it's an uphill battle with the way firms run.
It's on.
It's on. So she's saying it's an
So-
uphill battle with how firms run, that it's going to take decades and decades of
It's
change.
what she goes into. Why?
There you go. Go, Jan.
That the firms they promote those who overwork and overbill and who take their work home with them and answer. We have panels every year at our firm,
Yeah.
and there will be some of our senior attorneys and women and men, and they will say that if you want to make it, then you answer your phone 24 hours a day. You do this, you do that.
Yeah.
And maybe it worked for them. I'm just saying it's
It's a long process. And I look back and I think, and I was telling the members of my committee, I went through this purge thing and I cleaned my office recently. All the paper, like I'm paperless now. But part of doing that is we have 7 years worth of articles that this committee has put in, because we run an article every time the Bar report is out, which is our newsletter. And when I go back and I look at it, I remember when I first started having these conversations, even with this association, like, why do we need to do this? And the hurdle was just getting people to talk to me about it. But now the industry as a whole, we have a study that the ABA did. We have a lot of the lawyers' assistance programs have shifted from being less about substance abuse and addiction and more about mental health and welfare of their people. And so we are seeing some change, but like any other profession, it's a long process. And, you know, where do we go from here as our committee? What is our next step? So that's kind of where I am as the head of the committee, but it's also where I am as a member of the practice of law, because my personal commitment to myself is to take care of myself. Because I'm not good to my clients, I'm not good to my family, I'm not good to anyone unless I'm taken care of. And so I make that commitment to leave my office early 2 days a week to go to the gym. I make that commitment to, if I get an email and I'm really upset about it, to not answer right away. You know, I make certain choices. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful, but there are trade-offs. There are definitely trade-offs. And I don't know how we get to the big firm mentality, that corporate mentality of how is this good for our people? And that's the challenge that you guys have noticed and done something about.
I appreciate this conversation so much. I'd invite each of you to think within your own spheres. I don't know what that means, firm, practice, whatever. What's one thing that you can do within your own? Because it's like a sea change. You know, you listen to the gun control conversation this morning on whatever network you listen to as it relates to the school shooting yesterday. What's one thing that each of you, it's not all of a sudden going to flip. You know, but now the law school in Cincinnati, because of Sean Mangan's leadership and the other Foy lawyers there, they talk about this on like day 2 now of the law school that you see, probably when none of you all were there, right? So what's one thing that you can do in your own practice site, in your own firm, to create a culture of wellness? It's going to be different for each of you. But if each of you choose one thing that you're going to do, right? And then you encourage 3 more people that you know, hey, what's one thing you can do this year, right? Just like anything else you do, set a goal, set an intention. You know that your law school is now, and start to see the change that way. I mean, when I look at the medicine community or all around the country, all of our major national, the AAMC, the AAFP, they're all talking about wellness and well-being now. But it has to bubble up from each of our own communities. So I'd pick one thing that you can do personally that you feel like you can affect change with. I know we're 1 minute before 1.
One of the things I've had with talking with attorneys about mindfulness and meditation is they have a, I guess, to me, an old worn out image of people who meditate as somebody who's just really laid back and doesn't, you know, they don't have the mental, I don't say focus, but they're not as strong maybe, but they're like, I don't want to lose my edge. You know, if they're a litigator. This
is the competitive edge. That's what we say to the
right,
CCM
absolutely.
Students and faculty. I also would say that I know we talked about mindfulness and kind of meditation today, but I think the much bigger conversation really is around creating cultures of wellness and helping to shift the culture within law that it's okay to take care of yourself. And in fact, it's a mandate when it comes to competitive edge, when it comes to professional dignity and equity, and really providing, and so creating that space, whether it be with your mindfulness practice, watch what food you serve at your meetings, right? Make sure you're living into your values. Make sure, and so I'm happy to think with any of you all over time about ways to do it, but I would choose something that you can do personally that you can affect change with. It's a long haul, but we have to do it. We don't have a choice. We lose people every week. We don't have a choice.
I think what you're doing at the law school is really smart, and that is kind of building in this competitive edge argument that we can make from the firm culture. And it lends itself to the business case, because I can think back 5 years ago when we tried to expand our parental leave and make it, you know, gender neutral. We got a lot of pushback until my small committee was able to say, well, look at what our competitors are doing, and look at what people who are graduating now from law school, who we want to hire to remain competitive and viable, look what they're going to be demanding. And that is exactly what you're doing, because the people who are graduating are going to have that background and find that important, and they're going to come to a firm and say, I expect this. Right. Not I want it, it's I expect this in my career choices. So that's really smart. And that helps the people who, not my category, but the people at the top who are kind of looking at this saying, no, this is junk science or whatever, we're not doing this, to say, oh, but to be competitive, we have to do this.
Well, in all fairness, it was your 4 law school faculty that came to me, and we just partnered with them. But it's been their leadership.
Well, whoever, take the credit.
You're doing helped them along, but it's been the 4 of them that said we have to change this. So, thank you. We're at 1 o'clock. Do we need to stop, Tabitha? I don't know how your team. I want to thank everybody. My card and a little bit on our program offering are out there. But again, Meredith is sorry she couldn't be here with you. I hope we learned one thing that was new today. Go take care of yourselves. It's a Friday afternoon. Try not to work too hard. Thanks, everybody.